Most fans remember the charm and laughter of the Beverly Hillbillies, but few ever heard the story of what happened between Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp once the cameras stopped rolling. For years, people wondered why Ebsen refused to work with her again, turning down reunions and shutting the door on any chance of a partnership that once looked unbreakable. What came out later stunned longtime viewers, and it reveals a side of their relationship that almost no one expected. When the Beverly Hillbillies first aired, viewers instantly connected with the odd but endearing relationship between Buddy Ebsen's Jed Clampett and Nancy Culp's Miss Jane Hathaway. Their scenes carried a rhythm that felt natural, as if the two had known each other long before the cameras started rolling. Fans assumed they were close in real life, and for a while, their working relationship appeared smooth enough to support that belief. Yet, behind the warm smiles and quick comedic timing, their connection was far more complicated. People who spent time on the set have described the atmosphere between Ebsen and Culp as polite, but never particularly close. They both wanted the show to succeed, and they respected each other's talent, but there were early signs that their personalities did not blend as seamlessly as viewers thought. Crew members later noted moments during table reads when Ebsen would raise an eyebrow at one of Culp's comedic choices, or when Culp would gently push back on a delivery she believed would land better. At first, these were small things, normal creative disagreements that happen on any long-running show. But as the series went on, those subtle differences in style became more noticeable. Ebsen valued a traditional, grounded tone, shaped by decades of stage and film work. Culp leaned toward sharper, more modern humor, often adding little touches that gave Miss Jane Hathaway her distinct edge. To the audience, this blend made their scenes memorable. To the actors themselves, it sometimes caused friction that simmered just below the surface. Still, nothing at this stage suggested a lifelong rift. The issues were quiet enough that only those closest to the production ever picked up on them. Even then, most thought of these moments as minor bumps between two strong personalities who simply approached comedy from different angles. If anything, it made their on-screen work richer. Yet, these early hints set the stage for something much larger. As the seasons rolled on, disagreements did not disappear. They grew, shifting from creative debates into something personal. And soon, what started as small differences would become the foundation for a divide that neither actor could ignore. But this was only the beginning. As the Beverly Hillbillies settled into its success, the differences between Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp became increasingly visible to those who spent real time around them. On screen, they looked perfectly matched, each bringing a unique rhythm to the comedy. Off-screen, the contrast in their personalities was far sharper than fans ever imagined. Ebsen, born into a structured household, was shaped by years of discipline and endurance. He came from an era where you respected the script, trusted the director, and followed the plan without drifting from it. His early entertainment career was built on long hours of dance rehearsals, precision, and routines he repeated until every move felt effortless. That mindset followed him throughout his entire life. Culp came from a completely different world. She had studied journalism, loved books, and carried herself with an academic sharpness. Her mind worked fast, and she approached acting the same way she approached everything else, with curiosity and a desire to add layers of meaning. Before Hollywood, she spent time in the Navy Reserve and wrote for newspapers, experiences that shaped her independence and confidence. She was comfortable questioning ideas, offering alternatives, and pushing scenes into new territory. Her character, Miss Jane Hathaway, reflected that energy. But behind the scenes, that same boldness sometimes clashed with Ebsen's steady, traditional approach. People on set later recalled moments when those differences surfaced in subtle but meaningful ways. During rehearsals, Ebsen often preferred to run through scenes exactly as written, focusing on timing and familiarity. Culp enjoyed adjusting her delivery, experimenting with tone, or shifting a line to give Miss Hathaway more personality. Sometimes those tweaks delighted the cast. Other times, they created quiet tension, that only the crew noticed. Ebsen would give a small, restrained sigh. Culp would respond with an expression that showed she knew exactly what he was thinking. Rumors also circulated that Ebsen felt Culp occasionally stepped into comedic territory he believed should remain centered around Jed Clampett. It was never open conflict, but a steady undercurrent of irritation that would surface whenever Culp added an unexpected flourish to a scene. On the other hand, Culp sometimes felt that Ebsen dismissed ideas before she finished explaining them. Her sharp mind and quick reasoning could seem abrupt to someone who prized consistency above experimentation. These moments might have faded if the show had been short-lived, but after years of filming together, the tension between their instincts became harder to smooth over. Almost everyone on the show eventually noticed that the two actors simply processed the world in fundamentally different ways. Ebsen valued predictability and order. Culp thrived on change and layered nuance. Each believed their method made the show stronger. Each quietly believed the other was missing something. By the time the show reached the later seasons, the cracks in their working relationship were unmistakable to those who paid attention. They remained professional, they hit their marks, and they delivered the scenes audiences still love today. But the gap between their personalities grew wider with every creative disagreement, setting the stage for the moment that would permanently reshape their partnership. And when that moment came, it left a mark neither actor ever forgot. As the final years of the Beverly Hillbillies approached, the cast had settled into a rhythm that made the long hours easier to manage. Most scenes followed familiar patterns, and everyone knew the show's tone so well that rehearsals usually moved quickly. That was why the moment that changed everything between Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp stood out so sharply. It happened on an ordinary day, during an ordinary scene, yet the fallout lasted for decades. The scene they were working on involved a short exchange between Jed Clampett and Miss Jane Hathaway, a back and forth the audience always loved. Ebsen had rehearsed it in his usual precise way, focusing on pacing and the quiet humor that defined his character. Culp, who enjoyed exploring small shifts in expression and timing, walked into rehearsal feeling the scene could benefit from a bit more spark. According to people who were there, she suggested a slight adjustment, a pause, a sharper line delivery, a change she believed would add a clever twist to the interaction. At first, the discussion was calm. Culp explained her idea, pointing out how it would highlight Miss Hathaway's dynamic with Jed. Ebsen listened, but he did not agree. He told her the line should be delivered exactly as written, and that altering the rhythm would disrupt the flow he trusted. When Culp pushed back, insisting it would improve the scene, Ebsen's demeanor shifted. He rarely raised his voice, but his tone became flat and immovable, a clear signal that he had no intention of changing his approach. Crew members later said the temperature in the room seemed to drop. A few cast members exchanged glances. They had seen the two disagree before, but this felt different. Something long buried was starting to crack open. One stagehand recalled that Ebsen folded his arms, a gesture he used only when he felt strongly about something. Culp responded by tightening her posture, as if bracing herself for the argument that was quickly forming. What made this moment even more striking was how symbolic it felt. Ebsen represented the old guard, discipline, tradition, and the belief that if something worked, you did not tamper with it. Culp embodied the newer, more exploratory approach to acting, always looking for nuance and meaning. Their entire working relationship had been built on that contrast, but on this day, neither was willing to bend. The disagreement escalated in a way that surprised everyone. Culp, frustrated that her idea was dismissed so quickly, pressed harder, laying out her reasoning with more intensity. Ebsen, feeling challenged, pushed back with equal force. Some onlookers said it felt less like a discussion about a single line and more like the release of years of tension neither had ever addressed. At one point, Culp reportedly tried to lighten the mood with a small, dry comment, something she often did to ease difficult moments. but it did not land. Ebsen remained unmoved. He believed the scene should be done exactly as scheduled, and he would not compromise on something he felt threatened the tone of the show. What followed became the moment people remembered most clearly. Ebsen put down his script, offered a short statement about sticking to the original version, and walked out of the rehearsal room. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but with a finality that left no room for misunderstanding. Those who witnessed it said the silence afterward felt like a wall dropping between them. Culp stayed where she was, looking more stunned than angry. She was known for her composure, but in that moment, even she seemed shaken. A few crew members tried to continue working, pretending the moment had not just happened, but everyone knew something had changed. For the rest of the day, Culp performed the scene as written, with no adjustments, no hints of experimentation. Ebsen remained distant, polite, but sealed off, as if the conversation had exhausted him in a way that went deeper than simple frustration. In the days that followed, the two remained professional, but the warmth in their interactions had vanished. They no longer exchanged casual remarks between takes. They no longer offered input on each other's timing. The collaborative spark that once made their scenes feel effortless had dimmed. Whether the argument released years of quiet resentment or merely highlighted an incompatibility that had always been there, no one knew for sure. But from that day forward, their working relationship existed only on the surface. When the series finally ended, both walked away carrying the weight of that moment, a moment that would define their distance for the rest of their lives. And the effects of that divide became painfully clear in the years that followed. When the Beverly Hillbillies ended, most of the cast moved on with warm memories of their time together. Interviews from the era show a group that appreciated what the show had accomplished and how it shaped their careers. But when Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp spoke about the series, people noticed something unusual. Their reflections never matched. Ebsen often spoke fondly of the work, but noticeably avoided mentioning Culp. Culp, who normally offered sharp but friendly comments about her colleagues, rarely brought up Ebsen at all. The silence between them spoke louder than any argument ever could. Over time, small remarks began to surface that revealed more than either actor intended. Ebsen made several comments in later interviews suggesting that someone on the show often challenged his approach, disrupting what he felt was the natural flow of the series. He never named Culp directly, but fans and industry followers quickly connected the dots. His tone hinted at unresolved resentment, something that had lingered long after the series wrap. Culp, for her part, maintained a more measured tone. She praised the show's success and enjoyed reflecting on her character, but she kept her thoughts about certain cast dynamics carefully contained. Some insiders believed she held her own share of frustration, especially over how her ideas were received. Others thought she had simply chosen to move on, rather than reopen old disagreements. Still, the gap between their recollections left many viewers wondering what had truly happened when the cameras were off. Speculation grew when Culp made a major career move after leaving Hollywood. During this period, Ebsen publicly expressed a strong opinion that surprised many who assumed their tension faded with time. His statements were firm and unmistakable, and they reignited questions about how deep the divide between them really went. What seemed to outsiders like a simple professional disagreement now appeared to have personal weight behind it. Fans who adored the show were confused. They had spent years believing the cast shared the same warmth displayed on screen. To learn that two of the most beloved characters might have carried unresolved bitterness felt almost impossible to accept. But little by little, bits of information from interviews, from colleagues, from old production notes, painted a picture of a working relationship that had fractured long before the public ever noticed. What made the situation even more striking was how long it lasted. Many Hollywood disagreements fade with time, softened by distance and nostalgia. But in this case, the tension held firm. Neither actor backtracked on their feelings, and neither showed any interest in bridging the divide. And that growing distance became unmistakable when discussions of potential reunions began. As the years passed, networks began exploring reunion specials and anniversary segments celebrating classic television. The Beverly Hillbillies was always on the list, thanks to its enduring popularity and generations of viewers who discovered it through reruns. Producers assumed bringing the cast back together would be an easy task, but they quickly learned that there was one condition Buddy Ebsen insisted on, and it surprised everyone who had not followed the behind-the-scenes tension closely. People connected to these reunion efforts later stated that Ebsen was willing to participate only if Nancy Culp was not involved. He did not offer long explanation, nor did he mask his feelings. In private conversations, he reportedly made it clear that he had no interest in reopening old wounds or revisiting professional relationships he believed had been difficult the first time around. For someone who was usually polite and reserved, the firmness of his stance shocked those who knew him. Culp, learning of this, reacted with a mixture of disappointment and acceptance. She was known for her dry wit and introspective nature, and although she never publicly criticized Ebsen, she did hint in later interviews that not all chapters of her career ended the way she hoped. When asked about potential reunions, she often gave brief, careful answers, sidestepping questions about cast dynamics. Her tone suggested she was fully aware that not everyone from the show wanted to share a stage with her again. Industry insiders whispered about the reasons behind the long-standing divide. Some believed the creative disputes had struck a deeper nerve with Ebsen than anyone realized. Others felt Culp's strong personality clashed with Ebsen's preference for order and predictability. A few even speculated that their differences went beyond creative disagreements, touching parts of their personal values or philosophies. No matter the theory, one thing was certain: their rift had become too large for any reunion to overcome. This divide became even more obvious when producers attempted to organize interviews featuring multiple cast members. Ebsen often declined, sometimes citing scheduling conflicts and other times offering no explanation at all. Those who coordinated these events learned quickly which pairings would be approved and which were off the table. The message was understated but unmistakable. Ebsen's stance had not softened with time. Culp, meanwhile, maintained her dignity. She continued to speak warmly about the show's legacy and the joy it brought to audiences, yet she never pretended the behind-the-scenes relationships had been perfect. Her careful choice of words revealed an understanding that some professional connections simply do not survive the pressures of long-term collaboration. As the possibility of a reunion faded, fans began to accept that the cast would never fully come together again. The chemistry that once lit up television screens remained frozen in the past, untouched and unforgettable. But for Ebsen and Culp, that chapter had long been closed. And even as their careers moved forward, the gulf between them continued into the final chapters of their lives. In the years that followed their time on the Beverly Hillbillies, Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp built entirely separate paths. Ebsen continued acting, taking on a variety of roles that kept him in the public eye, while Culp shifted into new challenges that reflected her sharp mind and independent spirit. Even as their lives moved in different directions, the distance between them remained exactly where it had been when the show ended. Neither reached out, and neither showed interest in revisiting the past. When Ebsen was interviewed later in life, he often spoke with affection about the cast, the crew, and the unexpected success of the series. But whenever Culp's name surfaced, he became guarded. His tone changed, and he kept his answers short, as if he did not want to reopen a chapter he had already locked away. To those who followed his career, it was clear he still carried the weight of their disagreements, even decades later. Culp, by contrast, held a more reflective view. She spoke warmly about the show's impact and the opportunities it had given her. She shared fond memories of certain cast members and moments that shaped her character's identity. Yet when asked about Ebsen, she often shifted to broader topics or offered polite, distant remarks. She never attacked him, nor did she reveal any bitterness, but her silence in certain moments suggested a story she did not wish to tell. Fans noticed these patterns, especially as the two grew older. They wondered whether either actor ever considered reaching out, even for a brief conversation. Over the years, rumors circulated about missed opportunities or quiet attempts at reconciliation, but none were ever confirmed. Those close to the actors hinted that both had strong personalities and long memories, and that neither was willing to revisit a conflict that had hardened long ago. As time passed, the divide between them became part of the larger legacy of the show. Their story reminded people that even when a cast creates incredible on-screen chemistry, real-life relationships can be far more complicated. The laughter millions enjoyed came from two performers who, despite their talent and professionalism, never found common ground once the cameras stopped. When their later years arrived, both looked back on their careers with pride. They celebrated their successes, cherished the audiences who supported them, and acknowledged the chapters that shaped their legacies. But the unresolved tension between them remained unchanged, leaving fans to piece together what truly happened behind the scenes. It was a rare case where two gifted actors could create unforgettable television together, yet carry a private divide that time never erased. And in the end, their story offers a final reminder about the fragile nature of even the most beloved partnership. In the end, Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp created characters that millions still cherish, even though their own relationship never healed. Their story shows how two talented people can work side by side, deliver unforgettable moments, and still leave a distance that time cannot smooth out. What happened between them remained mostly unspoken, yet its impact shaped their later years, and the legacy fans still discuss today. Their partnership on screen was timeless, but behind the scenes, it became a chapter neither ever revisited.